Book 4. Hail Jamal, son of Zaid. Mullah Nasruddin went to the office of the People's Democratic Party. He asked the man at the information desk, "Where is Comrade Amin, our first socialist leader?" "He's dead, comrade." "And where, Comrade Information Officer, is Comrade Chairman Tariki, our second socialist leader?" "He's dead too, comrade." "And our fraternal Russian KGB chief, General Viktor Paputin?" "Dead. But why are you asking all these questions?" "Because, comrade, I do so enjoy hearing the answers." Night letter of Mazar, occupied Afghanistan. 1. This is your mission, Jamal. The airport, Hadika City, Narabia, Arabian Gulf, June 12th. There were over 100 Cadillacs, stretched Mercedes limousines, bulletproof Rolls-Royces and Range Rovers with special bodies parked on the tarmac as Prince Jamal drove up to his private 707. The turnout might have been larger. Everyone knew that one always saw off and greeted one's relatives, fellow members of the royal family. On the other hand, Jamal had had more than his share of it himself, turning up at all hours of the day and night, driving hell for leather to the huge airport from the capital along the kingdom's beautiful, but only 8-lane highway. It was almost obligatory to kiss the hand of uncle this and aunt that or cousin someone as they returned, often reluctantly, from Europe or America, where the need for urgent medical attention so often took them. Especially in the dreadful summer heat of Hadika City, when a cooler west beckoned. He stamped on the brake pedal and opened the doors of his favourite Ferrari, a 512BB, by pressing a single button. Tawfik, his secretary, tumbled out of the passenger seat, his stocky form cramped, the flabby face twitching with fear. Prince Jamal liked to cover the 24 miles in 12 minutes. The stupid but useful little man actually panted with distress when Jamal played little games to worry him, like ostentatiously painting over the speedometer. After all, flat out, the car could do 172 miles an hour, the fastest of its kind in the world. Jamal tossed the car keys to Snowflake, one of the Nubian slaves, and smiled at the respectful throng. The usual, practiced cry, signalling either welcome or farewell, went up from the assorted millionaires, princes, princesses, and Bedouin chiefs, the hangers-on, servants and drivers who were clustered at the foot of the embarkation steps. Jamal waved to them and turned as Tawfik tugged his sleeve to draw attention to the guard of honour which he had to inspect, to the strains of the national ode. The Narabian colonel, black-bearded and beetle-browed, with naked sword held upright, escorted Jamal back to the steps as the women in the crowd started their shrill ululation, the walwala, as indispensable as a salute in the East, as carols at Christmas in the West. Jamal silenced them with an upraised hand and spoke. "Sidi Akid, Colonel, brethren, I go in the service of the nation. Allah ma Narabia. God be with Narabia." This was the formula which never failed to produce a tear. It had been provided, at very great expense, following a $1 million study by a top Madison Avenue public relations firm, as was, too, the statutory answer, equally moving to the hearts of the people. God be with you too, our Lord Jamal. Long life to Jamal, son of Zaid, the Narabian. Jamal paused for the photographer of the Narabian Times after Tawfik adjusted the gold circlets of his argal and twitched the Kafir headcloth so that it formed a tiny peak, the sign of a prince, at the hairline. They went into the aircraft, and the door, with its golden crescent moon and black scimitar emblem, banged shut. Over the Arabian Sea, heading for Pakistan, Jamal took off his robe, belt, and jeweled dagger. He felt better in the Savile Row suit of specially woven white sharkskin cloth. Educated in the West, virtually brought up there, he liked to think of himself as a citizen of the world and a son of Arabia. And his public school in England, rounded off by Oxford, had certainly sharpened his mind. Time for a conference. He admired what the papers called his lithe form and hawk-like features briefly in the full-length bathroom mirror, and called the others, the Secretary Tawfik, Court Minister Hafiz, and the military advisor, Colonel Yahya ibn Yusuf, Eton and Sandhurst, to the conference table in the main lounge, the divan, of the great aircraft. History of Afghanistan, please, Tawfik. The secretary rustled a piece of paper. Size of Texas, Highness, mountainous, shaped like an oak leaf, wedged between China, Iran, the USSR, and Pakistan, which latter was formerly part of India. Fierce, independent people, 95% Muslims, part of the ancient Arab conquests under Caliph Harun al-Rashid. The British and Russians have vied with each other to gain power over it for 150 years. The British called this struggle the Great Game. Live long, Highness. Thank you. How about the Russian invasion? 10 years ago, Prince Daoud sent his cousin the king into exile and set up a dictatorship. The government, then as now, only controlled the towns. Life continued as before, mostly under feudal chiefs, mostly tribal. 5 years ago, a band of malcontents, mainly half-educated communists, seized power, killing dictator Daoud. Successive Red administrations, if you can call them that, followed up to end 1979, December 27th, when, sliding into anarchy, the terrified Reds called in the fraternal Russians. The prince said, How did the governments change one after another? Just by one party boss killing another. Daoud, the Republican prince, was killed by the communist Taraki, then Amin killed Taraki and became boss. He then called in the Russians, and their puppet Karmal killed him. And Karmal is still in power? Yes. His faction had Amin smothered with a cushion and gave out that he died of galloping diabetes suddenly during the invasion. That seemed to bring things up to date. But how about the guerrilla war? Colonel, what are the military implications of the Russian presence? May the Emir's life be extended. Colonel Yahya stroked his neat beard and inclined his long head. He looked regimental, even in civilian clothes. With a strong military and guerrilla tradition, Highness, the Afghans are not like their neighbors. Everyone is regarded as a soldier. The Russian army's objective is to secure the country as a base for further expansion and to open the way to India. They have at least 105,000 troops in place, 1 airborne and 6 motorized rifle divisions, plus tank divisions, but this is not enough. Against that, the Pashtun Durrani tribe alone can put almost 250,000 fighting men into the field, if properly armed. Quite a copybook soldier. He spoke in clipped sentences, but had done his homework. But Jamal wanted to know the present situation. Sidi Akid Yahya, what's happening now? The people, Highness, have been subjected to devastating attacks by hellships and airborne commandos. Most of the old regular Afghan army has joined the rebels in the mountains which form the major part of the land surface. All the larger towns have had uprisings from time to time. The best intelligence estimates are that the Russians have lost 10,000 men and 400 aircraft, some of the most modern in the world, felled by guns and missiles, captured by the rebels from the Russians. The puppet government reckons the damage done by guerrillas to their installations and facilities at $400 to $500 million, and have announced that officially. Can the rebels hold out? Could they even win? Highness, they are learning. But the Russians are learning too. There are reports, for instance, of some Soviet forces being sent out disguised as rebels, operating in the mountains against the Mujahideen. Nobody can yet say what the outcome will be. The guerrillas are fighting in widely separate groups under local commanders. They are unlikely ever to combine into a single movement. This is because of the nature of the terrain and the fact that they are of many different ethnic stocks. It also means that they can't be easily crushed. Are they getting any outside help? The Russians and the communist regime claim, of course, that they are. They can hardly admit that the ordinary people are fighting for freedom and have few arms. So they blame Egypt, China, Pakistan, and the United States. In fact, such aid is minimal, if indeed there is any at all. And the refugees? Driven out by bombing and terrorism, their fields are barren, deliberately devastated. There are nearly 4 million refugees. There are 280 camps in the Pakistan border area alone. Refugee support costs over $1 million a day for bare subsistence. Half of the cost is met by Pakistan, a poor country, in a magnificent effort. Half comes from international agencies, and hundreds of millions from Islamic countries. The Western response? Much shouting, Highness, anti-communist rhetoric. Dutiful printing in their press of the fact that 5,000 people a day, 2 million a year, are fleeing from terror attacks. Verily, when God seeks the downfall of a man, he first makes him blind, the prince quoted. Eminent Highness. It was the suave, courtly minister. Speak, Alim Hafiz. You have honoured me. The situation, may my words find agreement from you who know better. Hafiz could not cure a lifetime habit of flowery speech. The situation is complicated, and, may it find favour, needs close attention. Prince was getting bored. You are a learned man and speak well, but I need facts and I want to sleep. May I be the sacrifice for the life of His Royal Highness? The Alim started his compliments again, but caught himself just in time. The facts are these. Although called in by a minority government which only came to power by coup and murder, the Russian presence is legal. Any sovereign state can call in troops from anyone else. Even to butcher their own people? Regrettably, yes. That is the state of international law, the legal basis. It explains how the Soviets keep their hold on their satellites, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and so on. But to continue, this means that we can't easily denounce the communists. Right. It also means that Your Royal Highness will have to be careful in making contacts with political figures of the resistance. There are several groups of them with offices in Pakistan. Added to this, some may be, and probably are, penetrated by red agents. Nobody can be sure. I see. Now what are the rebels called? Mujahid is the name of the warriors, struggler. Traditionally it is translated in the West as holy warrior, like the crusaders of the old days. The plural is mujahideen. News commentators from abroad think that mujahideen is the singular, though. Thank you, Alim. Perhaps we are getting a little too detailed. Speech short and work long, isn't that the proverb? Your Royal Highness's patience has emboldened your loquacious subjects to prolong their ramblings, my lord. So I'm to blame for what you do, is that it? Jamal liked to make the courtier cringe, because he was more than a little annoying, even if he had a crafty brain. Jamal addressed the whole group. His Majesty has sent us on a special mission. Overtly, I am going to Pakistan to visit the refugee camps to bring some comfort to 3.5 million of our brothers and sisters. I shall be touring the camps in the Peshawar area. In one sense, however, I am your cover. You will collect all possible military and political information to enable the throne to decide how to deal with the Russian threat. Make sure that you do your utmost. Our survival may depend upon it. All nodded. The meeting over, Prince Jamal retired to the luxurious bedroom and slept, to be fresh for his reception in Pakistan.